Hey, what's up guys? Bluntguts here. This is a Watch Your Realms video. I'm going to be talking about one of my favorite heroes in the game, Torodor. Unfortunately, the reason that I like him so much is primarily because he looks like such a badass. I mean, look at this dude. He's a gigantic flame-covered bull. He's got this gigantic badass-looking shield and axe. And I mean, even before I got him, I wanted him so badly, and I was really thrilled to get him. And early game, he really carried me through a lot of content. He was a great tank for me early on. Unfortunately, he's not very good at what he does, and he kind of falls into this middle category that I see a lot of the offensive defenders that Moonton has put out. He falls into that category where he wants to be kind of like an offensive tank. He wants to be able to do some damage, and he does do that reasonably well. He does okay, especially when you consider him against other defenders in the game. I don't have Gon, but I imagine that Gon maybe is another example of a tank that can put out some serious damage. Torodor is not going to do much single target damage. He does decent AoE damage though. Nothing to write home about, and he's nowhere near what you're going to see from like your main AoE damage dealers like a Comet or a Boreas or something like that, or even really some of the fighter AoE champions like Ardea and things like that. He's not going to compare to them, but what he does do is he brings a little bit more survivability. His base stats are slanted more towards being able to take some hits, and that can be helpful in certain situations. So I guess all this to say that there's a couple ways that you can build this dude. You could build him as a tank, and he does an okay job at that. The problem is that he doesn't really have any defensive skills. I'd say the closest thing that he has is this passive, Hellfire Resurgence. Revives after the first death in battle, restoring 70% HP and 80% rage. This effect can only be triggered one time per deployment. If you are insanely lucky and you do manage to get him to A5, his A5 Awakening actually makes this 2 times. So he can be revived up to 3 times, which I think to a certain degree that does make him a little bit more viable as a defender in this game. But the unfortunate thing is that, the defenders that are often touted as being the best in the game are ones that have these ultimates that provide a large increase to their survivability. I'm thinking Baron, who has a massive shield that he provides on his ultimate. I think about what's his name? Brokir, the Frost Dwarf that freezes and also provides a massive shield. They also have Unyielding, which it gives them unkillable. When they do take fatal damage, they become unkillable for X amount of seconds. Usually it's around 12 or so when it's fully talented. So he doesn't have any of that. He does revive himself, which is kind of cool, and there are some niche situations where he is really useful. But that kind of puts you in a bind because how do you gear this guy, right? I think defenders typically, the general advice is often to stack as much HP as possible on them. The reason being that the defense stat is kind of lackluster for the most part. In other games that I've played that are like this, oftentimes defenders will calculate their damage based off of defense. That's not the case unless the hero specifically states that. I think there's 2 that come to mind, Azor and Gon. They both scale off of defense, which makes defense stacking a more viable strategy. Defense does help. I think a lot of folks have kind of put out the idea that you don't need to worry about defense at all, and I don't think that that's true. But if you are building him as a Torodor, that is, as an offensive tank, so you want him to do some damage, then really what you're looking at is regular damage gear. He does scale based off of attack, so what I've got him in is kind of my worst Infernal Roar set right now. I do have a crit rate ring on him because neither of these left side pieces do have any kind of crit rate on them, and so I needed that crit rate to compensate. I still managed to get decent stats here. You can see we're a little less than 2 times his base attack in the plus attack over here. We've got crit cap. We've got about 333 crit damage, so decent stats. You can see his defensive stats are bad though. He's only got about 36,000 HP, maybe 37,000 HP. He's only got about 4,000 defense, and he's not going to be taking all that much in this current gear. But with that said, there are some ways that this skill set, Torodor's skill set, can be really, really useful for you. I'm thinking primarily of the first codex, the one with the Cyrus boss. I don't know why I can never remember his name, but the one with all of the waves of AoE enemies that are coming at you. Torodor is pretty decent in that. At the very least, he's good to enhance a lot of the Nightmare Fighters, which are really good in that stage. But generally speaking, he has this skill where he... that's not it. That's not it. Atrocious Trample. Each attack launches a 20% chance to launch an AoE attack, dealing 80% damage and inflicting the targets with stun. So stun is kind of his crowd control. Unfortunately, it's RNG based, and you can't really rely on it, and he is relatively squishy otherwise. So in any case, I guess what I'm saying is that when you're building him, I would primarily look to build him as a damage dealer. That's where I most often use him. I don't really use him as a defender in the late game because there's really no place where I wouldn't be bringing, say, like a Brokir or Olag or Baron. Hell, Baron does a better job of it than Torodor does. But if I do need to have a defender that's going to put out some damage, Torodor really comes into play, and he does have some control. So you can build him like this. You could do somewhat of a hybrid build where I have a few pieces of gear in Infernal Roar that are HP based. Where is it? HP bonus. There we go. Apparently I don't have any rings, but I do have, say, like this neck right here that I could pop on him, and I could combine with some of these other ones. So, for example, if I put this on right now, well, look at that. I just got 3 times the bonus HP that I had on him before. So his HP essentially went up by about 40% right there in aggregate. So granted, it would be better if I had one with crit rate on it, but just for the example here, let's pretend it's crit capped. I could potentially have a Torodor with, let's see, 55k HP. We're going to pretend that this is 100% crit rate and about 250% crit damage and decent attack speed as well. Look, 441 attack speed, so I could even drop that down a little bit and it would still be very nice. What I will say is that, unfortunately, this is a game of extremes. You either want extreme high damage on your characters, you want extreme healing on healers, you want extreme durability on your defenders, and Torodor just doesn't fit the bill there, unfortunately. We could do something, we can put some decent tank gear on him. Let me see, I think I was doing Piercer faction trials earlier, so I think that my tank gear is on Livian here. This is some tank, I mean, honestly, tank gear, you can kind of just throw it all together, but so we just swapped it on, and now we've got 110k HP, we've got 7,000 defense, we have 0 attack speed on him, which is not great. I would honestly try to stack some attack speed on him, and the reason being that he has, where's that stun that I was just looking at? So the more he attacks, the more chances he's going to have to do his Atrocious Trample and to stun the targets that are in range, which is an AoE range, which is great. But you do need that higher attack speed in order to kind of counteract the inherent RNG. His base, where is it? His base attack speed, I think, is 3 seconds. Yeah, 3 second attack speed. So you are going to want to get that down as much as possible, preferably around 1.5 seconds, which I think is going to be somewhere around 400 attack speed. That's going to put you in a better spot to be able to get that stun out more reliably and probably indirectly boost his survivability that way. That's certainly something to consider. And that's something that when you are thinking about these defenders, especially if you're not asking them to do damage. You know, Torodor hits harder than most of the defenders in the game, but I would also say that when you're trying to build this, you should be thinking to yourself, okay, what are his skills? If I put attack speed on him, what does that do for me? If I put HP on him, what is that going to do for me? Defense, etc., etc. You should be trying to make sure that the gearing that you put on him is going to synergize with his kit. And yeah, I hope this helps out. He is, as far as the tanks that I have, he is the best damage dealer that I have as far as defenders are concerned. We're going to see maybe that comes into play in the upcoming tank codex, which should be coming out in February. So he may see a little power spike then. But I've already used him in codex in the AoE stage that I was talking about earlier. So he does have some uses. It's just a little bit more niche than I'd like to see, particularly for somebody who is as rare as him. I wish these lords weren't just there for their bonuses, but they were also there because they were really good heroes as well. It would certainly make pulling them a lot more exciting and make it seem, I guess, a lot more of an upgrade for your account. Not that he isn't already. He is phenomenal. I love my Torodor. I've got him A1. No complaints about that. But I do think that the design of these defenders at some point in the next 6 to 12 months or so, they're going to do a rework, and we're going to see a bunch of changes to the way that defenders work in this game. Right now, I think that there unfortunately is just there's not a lot of imagination needed in this. You can do some funky things like the damage building that I was talking about, but he's still not going to do it as well as pretty much any fighter in the game. So it is what it is. Anyway, guys, hopefully this gives you some thoughts as far as when you are trying to gear Torodor, what you can put on him. If you do have any thoughts or comments, please post them below, and I will be more than happy to get into a discussion with you, and we can see if we can't figure out some cool things that we can do with Torodor. I appreciate it, guys. If you like the content, please do like and subscribe. I really appreciate it if you do that, and I wish you all the best of luck. I will catch you all next time.